folks, this is Charles Smith. I'll be walking you through the inter-service procedures for Instructional System Development Model over the next 5 or 6 minutes. One simple objective: after completing this mini course, students will be able to discuss the major steps in the inter-service procedures for Instructional System Development Model. What you'll notice about this model is that it's very similar to the ADDIE process. You will notice some minor variations in positioning of substeps, and you'll also notice that the evaluate in ADDIE is simply control in the IPISD model. The first phase is the analyze phase. 5 things occur in this phase: analyzing the job itself, selecting the task and or functions, constructing job performance measures, analyzing existing courses, and selecting the instructional setting. Now let's take a look at these in a little bit more depth. When the job is analyzed, essentially what you're looking for is you are looking for all the activities necessary to perform that job, and you're also looking for any additional skills and or knowledges required as well. Armed with your list of job activities, we'll call them, the next task is to identify those tasks for which training is required. Now, does it make sense? There are some tasks that are so easy that people just inherently understand how to do them. Well, and on the other hand, you've got tasks that are extremely difficult or important, and those are the tasks that essentially will be concentrated in the training. The next piece is to construct job performance measures. Here's where the instructional designer goes through and identify all of the critical steps or other nuances in the job that are required to perform that job to the level of expectations. The next phase is when existing courses are analyzed. The instructional designer goes through and looks at these courses not necessarily from a content perspective, but from the perspective of similar skills and their knowledges that are acquired by completing that course. The next piece is selecting the instructional setting. Now, there are several instructional settings that can be applied: self-study, computer-based training, classroom-based training, in-plan or OJT, on-the-job training, and those are selected based on essentially the difficulty and the audience. The next major phase is the design phase. 4 things occur: developing of the objectives, developing tasks, describing entry-level behaviors, as well as determining sequencing and structure of the courseware. The first step in the design phase is developing the objectives, and as you know, the objectives are essentially an audience, a behavior, condition under which is performed, as well as the degree to which is performed. The next step in the design phase is developing the task. The easiest way to think of a task is it is very much like an objective for a performance-based item. The next piece of the design phase is describing the entry-level behavior. This is where you set the initial knowledge and skills required to even be in the course. In other words, if they don't meet that initial criteria, then they're not allowed in the course. The last piece of the design phase is determining the sequence and structure of the contents. If you think about it, there are several ways to structure the objectives. You can structure the objectives from known to unknown, simple to complex, chronological order, and again, the content is structured similarly. 5 things occur in the development phase: specifying the learning events or activities, specifying the instruction management plan and the delivery system, reviewing and selecting any existing materials, actually developing the instruction, as well as validating the instruction. Specifying learning events or activities. This is where the instructional designer goes through and identifies interactive events or activities to engage the audience that also support their learning objectives. The learning management plan essentially is developing the procedures to actually implement and evaluate the training. and the delivery system is also specified at this point. When reviewing and selecting existing materials, the instructional designer looks for existing courseware, any computer-based technologies, or any other materials that also support the learning objectives. At this point in the development phase, the instructional materials, the courseware, the lesson plan, the PowerPoint presentation materials are also developed. When validating the instruction, the instructional designer, actually the instructor, may perform a dry run of the training to the intended target audience, as well as get the SME to review the content for validity. In the implementation phase, two things occur. The first is actually implementing that instructional management plan developed prior, as well as conducting the actual instruction itself. In the control phase, or the evaluation phase in ADDIE, three things occur. The evaluations, whether it be internal or external, as well as revising the system. These internal evaluations generally follow the Kirkpatrick 4, first being the reaction sheet completed by the students identifying weak and strong points of the course. Second being a summative evaluation to identify whether the objectives are being mastered. Third being an evaluation by supervisory personnel that the skills and knowledge are being transferred into the workplace. And lastly, is essentially the corporate level. Is it affecting the corporate culture? These external evaluations are when personnel within the organization outside of the training or student functions are either observing the training itself or the materials being taught. This could be a management observer observing the classroom, or even a quality assurance audit of the materials and documentation. The last piece in the control phase is revising the system. This is where feedback received on the course contents or materials or courseware are used to evaluate and revise the system. And the single reference used is the Gustafson and Branch Survey of Development Models 2002 edition.